doing? It's Andre from Sydney. Just in case my kids wake up, I'll go back on mute. But I was actually in the States recently for the Ignite conference, and I actually have a question. This might be specifically for Mikhail. I'll just paste it in the window. So this is about supporting Service Fabric CI/CD for Linux environments in the Azure DevOps agent pools. I'm wondering if there's any progress on that.
Mikhail, do you want to take on this one? Mikhail is on mute, and it looks like he might be on hold as well. So I'll let Mikhail get back to this one as he reestablishes the connection. Any other questions? Yeah, Raunak is on vacation at this time, so he was not able to join this call, but I will relate this to his team and try to get a comment on this, Andre. So the other issue, the 1275.
Cool. I have another one. It's sort of a recent request we made, actually, and I think from what I can see, it's actually going to be delivered as part of the next 6.4 release. And this is about metrics for reliable collections, metrics like the memory usage, the total keys in a partition, the disk usage of collections, and I think this is going to be part of 6.4, but wondering if there's any more details around when 6.4 will be released, and also what the metrics will look like. Is it all the metrics listed in that link, or yeah?
Okay, so the 6.4 is going to be released soon. We're getting it in the final stages of validation, so it should be out very soon. I don't have the exact date, but it should by the next community call it should be out. At least that's the plan. I don't have the details on whether this is a full list or if all of these metrics are included in the 6.4 release, but I will follow up on this one. This is the 1314 issue in GitHub, right, Andre?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so we'll follow up on this one, and then if you're kind to leave me your email, I'll make sure that you get an answer. Okay. So
no problem.
Yeah, Tobias had a question. Next version of Service Fabric. So Tobias, I think we've covered this. So 6.4 is the next version of Service Fabric, and it's about to be released soon. 2019, Windows Server 2019, whether that's supported in 6.4. I don't have the answer to that off the top of my head. I can check. Sorry about that.
So, Andre, I heard you had a question regarding the build on Linux and Docker container thing. I was out of sound, so I wasn't able to hear the question, so maybe we can pick it up again.
Yeah, no, good to catch up with you again. So I was just asking about, in case there's been any sort of progress on that, because I think that's actually with the Azure DevOps team, but I'm not sure. So I sort of asked them for an update, but I haven't received one, and I'm just wondering if you guys know any more about it. Are there plans to support it? Any time frames? So this is all about supporting, I guess, the Linux agent pool and having the Service Fabric SDK as part of it. You mentioned there might be workarounds or some things in the meantime. But
yeah, so the thing is, and this might be a little bit different in Linux than in Windows at least, that first of all, from the Azure DevOps team and their agent pool, I know they've been it's a fairly expensive way they used to do hosted agents, because at least from a Windows point of view, because of MS Build and Visual Studio dependencies, they actually had to do these by maintaining VM images that they would spin up to run their agents on. And they really want to move into a containerized model where they can basically just spin up a simple container to do, and even have different containers for different tasks at one point. So there's something they're doing there, and I think what they're doing with some of the new agents they have released is that they have a more low maintenance model from their point of view. So basically, they more or less only give you the base operating system and stuff that you need to bring along. You need to bring in as part of the build test. So that leads me to the Service Fabric SDK and what it is you need, because what is it that you're trying to build? Is it a .NET Core Linux project, or what is it you need from the Service Fabric SDK? Because that again is a lot of different things, and it's very different from Windows and Linux in terms of the requirements to do actually build and release in those different tasks.
Good question. Yeah, I guess I don't know the precise answer to that myself. So what I tried to do was I ported a Windows microservices to Linux. So this is .NET Core. And then I want to have it part of a CI/CD pipeline, but I don't want to stand up my own cluster or VM or build machines. I would prefer to use the built-in Azure DevOps Linux build agent. And the agents, from what I understand, and I linked it in the GitHub issue, and when I spoke to the team, they're actually based on Docker already. The Visual Studio Team Services agent Docker images. And if you look at the images, the list of actual tools and SDKs is huge, and they include even third-party systems like Haskell and so there's other languages in the Erlang. And I was wondering why not the Service Fabric SDK? So then I could compile my app on the Docker container, and I could deploy it even to, for example, the Service Fabric party cluster, all without having any of my own machines or infrastructure. Or I could do my unit tests on it. I could, maybe do integration tests if I deployed to the Service Fabric party cluster.
So so I see they do build some of these images and having stuff in here. I think, so to be able to build a .NET Core project, first of all, you only need the .NET Core CLI, or the .NET Core SDK, sorry. Then you need to package the application project for Service Fabric. And on Linux, the SF Proj and project that from Visual Studio on Windows does not have an equivalent on Linux in terms of, you would have to use something like VS Code or have it all CLI driven. The thing that we provided there is a set of Yeoman templates to help you, create the app manifest and service manifest. But I really don't think we have anything tooling-wise to help you create the app package, which is what would come next after having built the actual binaries from your .NET Core project.
Right. Yeah. So I got I was going to say I got as far as building, but even when I built it, I logged maybe a half a dozen issues with different tooling and things, and I actually had the help of a few people on your team to overcome them. But it got down, I think, to the point where I had to reference .so Linux files to get the whole thing working. So I was thinking if the SDK was there, I could compile and use the command line Service Fabric CTL tool to deploy.
Exactly. So that leads me to the part where I can see that you need a dependency of some of the Service Fabric tooling, which is the actual deployment of your package once that's created. But you should be able to create the package without the SDK, the Service Fabric SDK. But then the actual deployment, SFCTL, would be good to have. You could do an ARM deployment if it's to a cluster in Azure, or you could do a REST deployment for what that matters. So I understand the ask, and I think we should work with the DevOps team to get at least SFCTL in the container images. But it shouldn't be a block, or it shouldn't actually be necessary for it to to get to a working state.
Okay, maybe I can follow up with you because
Sure.
the actual project and everything is in GitHub and it's sort of open sourced and it's available. And when I tried hooking it in, it failed with sort of different errors, and maybe that's just my sort of lack of understanding. But if I can follow up with you, maybe we can progress that one.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
Awesome. Okay.
Cool.
So I think most of the other questions have been answered by the folks on the call. So there was a question about whether Mesh will support reliable actors, and then Damir replied. So essentially, Mesh will support actors soon, at some point, but reliable collections need to be enabled first. Mikkel, is this still the greatest info that we have?
Yes, it is.
So 3 stars for Damir for the correct answer. And then the other question was for Windows Server 2019 and whether it's going to be supported in 6.4. And then it was mentioned at Ignite that it won't be around soon. Mikkel, do you by any chance have any other updates here?
No, sorry, I don't.
Okay. So I believe we've answered all of the pending questions from the chat. And it looks like Andre and Janusz are having a chat on the Linux builds. I'm learning a lot about Linux, guys, so please keep it up.
Yeah, sorry to sidetrack if I am, but I have another question maybe regarding Mesh, and I don't know if this is the forum to ask. Or Service Fabric, because the functionality is similar. It's rated to the, what are they called, the volume drivers. I'm just wondering if there's any more information about when they might be delivered. So this is that replicated low-level, I don't know what you'd call it, block storage or file storage. Is there any more information?
Yeah, those are also in the 6.4 release. So the 6.4 runtime release is the one that we're waiting for. We're all waiting anxiously to get it out. And once we have that out, the Mesh service will be updated with that runtime, and it will start to light up in Mesh as well.
So will that feature be GA in Service Fabric 6.4 then? We can actually start using it or testing with it, or?
No, I don't expect it to be GA in 6.4.
Right, but it will be.
Sorry?
But it will be available.
Yes, it will be available as a preview feature, yeah.
Right, okay.
And to your other question, is this the right forum? Yes, by all means. So it's the same engineering team working on Service Fabric across the board, including Service Fabric Mesh. So all Service Fabric and Mesh questions are more than welcome. Fire away.
Sort of on that block storage one, or the volume driver, is there any information you can share about the performance? Any performance, like even early performance tests you guys have sort of done on that? What I'm thinking is the use cases it'll be good for, like, can I run a database on top of it? Can I use it only as simple storage? Can I...
Yeah, we don't. I don't think we have any performance data at this point that we're ready to share for what we've been doing so far. But just to give you a little bit of insights of how everything is going on. So the main thing we've done here in 6.4 is we basically decoupled the whole replication and reliable collection stack old data stack that we have, so that we're able to run reliable collections outside of Service Fabric. There's no dependency on any of the Fabric libraries anymore, and that has really enabled us. So it has enabled us to do these kind of decoupling. That replication is sort of a thing we inject into your process if you opt in to do that with inside Service Fabric, which means that you can also use reliable collections outside of Service Fabric. Now the volume driver, or the block store driver as we also call it, is actually built on top of reliable collections. So basically the individual blocks that end up being written are just stored in reliable collections. That's how you're going to do the replication of them. So, just to give a little bit of insights of the work we're doing there. And so there are three things that are going to light up in 6.4 based on this decoupling we've done. One is the reliable collections for .NET, which is just reliable collections anywhere. It is, so you don't have to have a reliable service to use those. Then it is JCache in Java, backed by reliable collections for replication. And then finally, it's the block store, again, backed by reliable collections and replication. But again, we don't have any performance at this point.
Mm-hmm. I know from sort of past, I guess, community questions, I know there was a little bit of an overhead in like the boxing of like the .NET types to the C++ types in some of that layer. Has that sort of been addressed with these changes? Is it like more optimized? Is it like is it using some different type of implementation than previously, or is it still going to be converting .NET to C++?
It is still, well, wait a second. Some of the layers have been, so some of the layers are not,
That's all right. I mean, it's a very
migration of some of these layers from managed code into native code. Because I know that's how we that's how we did the initial implementation on Linux. So Linux is actually a little bit different. To be honest, Andre, I really don't know if we have used that, or I think we're relying on that for this new reliable collections model. I actually think we are. But then again, I don't know the exact impact, because I don't know those performance numbers yet of if we have solved some of those issues.
Mm-hmm. Understood. All right.
Yeah.
Can't wait to get my hands on it then.
Nope.
But this is good feedback. I guess we'll relate this to the folks who are driving this work, releasing some performance numbers and or at least the use cases which this is optimized for, will be very helpful, I guess. So we'll relay that to the right folks.
Yeah, because one of the questions I have is like, in the cloud you have a lot of options, but say you wanted to run Service Fabric or Mesh on-prem, and you have to, for example, recreate similar functionality like running highly available databases. I was just thinking of the feasibility of running a database on top of the volume driver. To get the high availability, it dies on one node, it's brought up on another node, and the data is magically there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm specifically looking to sort of know. But yeah, can't wait to test it.
So please keep us in the loop. Being able to run a database on top of this is going to be really cool. But again, too bad Raunak is not around to comment a little bit more on the details. Okay. Any other questions? I don't think we have anything pending in the chat. If yes, please repeat. I might have missed something.
I've got another question in case no one else does, just to keep the flow going.
Sure.
Stop me anytime, everyone else that's on the line. So there was back in the past, I believe at the beginning of the year, an idea to release the Azure Data Explorer as part of the Service Fabric Explorer. I know we're getting the backup service, I believe in 6.4 in GA, but just wondering about that Data Explorer component.
Yeah, I think you're referring to a project that one of our colleagues in the sorry, I'm okay. I'm not muted. Okay, sorry. I think you're referring to a project that one of our colleagues in the Azure CAT team did, Jesse Benson, which was, what he did was he implemented an ASP.NET Core middleware to expose reliable collections as an OData endpoint, and then did some UI NSFX on top of that. We haven't, to be honest, we haven't gone further with that specific implementation, but we sort of did this a different way around, where instead of, the problem is we would end up only having a story around ASP.NET Core because of the way that the middleware was implemented. So we actually been looking at it a little bit from a different angle, and one of the things that we showed up at Ignite was, was around the backup and restore service and how we could, I don't know if we got to show that, but we can actually, with our backup and restore service, there is we've done some work to have an offline explorer on backups of your reliable collections, where part of that is basically by you providing your code package, we will go and serialize the backups based on the code package and whatever code you have in there. So that feature has the ability to expose all your reliable collection data through REST endpoint, basically just by looking at your code and then the backup files. So there is also an Explorer piece to that. So there's sort of like an offline Explorer experience around the backup service and backups today, and that is what we will bring in to also have a live version of that for you to be able to look at reliable collections running inside your cluster. I don't know exactly the timeline for these things to sort of all fall into place. So with 6.4, the backup and restore service will be general available, and the backup explorer will probably come out as a preview. It's sort of a standalone component. It's not tied into the runtime release as such. So that is the first step in that direction. But the main goal is the same as what was in that concept, which was done a while back. But it's sort of, we've done it implemented a different way around.
Cool. And you guys have that sort of, I guess, already working in some prototype stage, the offline.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool.
So there was a question from Slavomir, I believe, yes, about the info on support for a multi-availability zone cluster with silver durability. Mikkel, do you have any details here? Slavomir, is there an issue on GitHub with something already open for this?
Availability zone clusters with silver is only current issue with infrastructure.
Yes. Yeah, I believe there is. I can look for the number, but basically the issue is that the infrastructure service only integrates with ScaleSet in one of the zones. So if you turn on the silver durability, two of the ScaleSets are not working properly when doing any updates on the ScaleSet. Because they do not get the info from the infrastructure service properly, and yeah, I know that it is a known issue in your team. So I was just wondering if you have any info of when it could be resolved.
We don't have specific details. What will help is if there's a GitHub issue open, if you can share the link, we can just ping the right folks on the side and then get back with the info. And if we don't have for some reason an issue on this, please open one, and then that'll help increase the visibility for sure. And thanks for the suggestions on the DevOps timelines. I really like this. I'm not sure if we've considered this kind of advanced timeline for the upcoming features in the Service Fabric team, but this is something I will suggest to the PM team. Makes sense. Thanks.
Thanks for the feedback, Espen, about the feature timeline. Yes, we are talking about that. I think yes, we definitely are. We need to keep ourselves more accountable to the timelines and these things. I think, and I guess all of you understand this, that it's hard to give absolute timelines of when things, guarantees when things will land. But at least we need to have better publicly available roadmap, just to make sure that you are aware of whether things are actually in flight or whether they're just like loosely coupled ideas that we talked about. Are they landing soon? Are they ready for takeoff? Basically, something like that. That's definitely something we're trying to do.
Slavomir, got you on this one. It was closed by... Okay. Yeah. So
the multi-AC thing was discussed as late as yesterday in one of our technical meetings. So it is definitely on our radar that the availability support needs to bubble all the way up to Service Fabric. Definitely. Availability zone. So.
Yeah. So we are aware of this, and thanks for the ping.
Cool. So I don't know if we have any unanswered questions. But I was actually scrambling a little bit to try and get a demo ready. It's always fun. I actually don't know. I haven't talked with the engineers about this yet, but I really wanted to show off some of this new reliable collection stuff, just in the state that we have it now, to sort of give you an idea of the concepts and then how this will work in the new mesh application thing. So. Let's make sure we just keep this between the 16 of us.
Okay, so did you talk to Andre before the meeting?
No, we're good. We're probably fine. I have no idea if this will actually succeed or not, but let's see how this works.
Can't wait to try it out, Mikhail.
Cool, yeah. Okay, so you probably all know the small quick start voting data thing that we have. Which is basically just, we have this API with reliable collections where we store votes in, and we have a front end for that as well. So what I have here is basically, you can see my screen sharing, right?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So what I have here is basically just the one API, which is the one that we usually use as a backend. As you can see, it's a plain ASP.NET Core project. There shouldn't be, going to the CS project. There shouldn't be anything in here that it's .NET Core 2.0. There's a mesh ASP.NET Core data package in here, and the Uber ASP.NET Core all package as well. That's all there is. There's nothing special Service Fabric source in this guy. And looking at the program CS that we have in here, also you can see it's just a regular program, .NET Core. There's nothing reliable services that you have to derive from. You have a main entry point that just builds your web host. And then we have our use reliable collection services middleware down here, where that's basically all I have to do other than having the data package in. And I'm setting up a reliable collection service. I call it voting data service, and then we have this reliable collection mode. I actually think we can play a little bit around with that, so let's try and do that. So all that I do in here in my data controller now is I get access to my reliable state manager, or the iReliable state manager. So using the state manager in here, I just have I have a get, put, and delete methods. So I can go and get my reliable dictionaries. So those of you who've been working with reliable collections before, the API should be similar to what you know today. So basically no changes in the API. I'm working with the state manager reliable collections. And again, you can see I can start put things. We have the concepts of transactions and all these things. All the APIs should be the same, and I can delete these. So let me just go ahead, and because this is all .NET Core, I don't even have. Let me see if I I don't even have my Service Fabric cluster running. I didn't even had to have my Service Fabric cluster installed, Service Fabric installed, SDK installed. So I'm basically just run this voting data as a console application, .NET Core. Start up my Kestrel web server. And we can go and see if we actually have any votes in here. We don't, no votes are in. Okay, so let's go over and just, let's not delete, let's go and put. So I'm just going to put a vote in for cats because it always ends up being pets somehow. So I put in the cat and we can go back and we can refresh and now we have one vote for cat. Okay, that's all nice and easy. Those are stored in reliable collections and that's good. Now let's go ahead and try and stop. I don't know. Let's just try go ahead and restart this one. So this is interesting. Now the application, the process went down. It's going to start up again. Let's go and see if we have any votes. And we don't. So the cat vote is gone, which is expected. This was not unexpected in the demo. It's expected in the demo, which leads me back to these reliable collections mode that I have. So you can see I'm running in a volatile mode, which basically means everything is in memory. It's only stored in the life cycle of the process. But we have a few options in here, and one of them is called standalone. So let me try to go ahead and do the standalone instead, because what we start to doing now when I rerun my application is we're actually starting to store the information on disk. So let's go back and see the voting data that we have. So still no votes because we didn't have any votes to begin with. Let's go and vote for cats to bring justice to the pet lovers out there. Let's have a vote for dogs as well. And now we can go and see we have one cat and we have one dog. So let's try and restart our process again. And this is the moment. Let's see if we still have cats and dogs in here. Oops, I need to type. That's correct. So there you go. Even cross or even detached to the process lifecycle, my data is still here. So the shortest of demos for reliable collections, running outside reliable services. And basically what I just want to show you is that within my voting data application, we now have the voting data service set up down here. So that is basically just, we reference the voting data service. It's basically just a dictionary with the work, and you can see we start having all our transaction logs and data stored on disk, which is, basically how this standalone mode works. And this is then where we start adding the replication underneath this. So if I run this inside a Service Fabric cluster, and I have, I can take the same executable, I can run this in, even in standalone mode actually. No, in standalone mode we won't replicate. You need one of the other modes. I think you need I don't remember what the modes are called. Well, maybe it's cluster mode. So anyway, but once we get in there and the definition inside my, the YAML definition for mesh, or even, XML definition for running, the Service Fabric native services, I can start defining, I actually declare the voting data service as a resource in there, and I define the number of replicas and partitions set up and stuff that I need to do. And then I just have, replication on top of the exact same code that I just ran here outside of Service Fabric. So that was the short demo I wanted to show you to give you a little bit of an idea of, how this actually works and how we're going to plan on giving this to you in the 6.4 release.
Did you say 6.4 release?
Yes.
Wow. That's actually going to be very good.
It is part of what what is coming on in the next release. And again, it's going to be a preview feature. We don't have general availability around this yet. There are still things we need to solve around. I think for the local developer experience, I don't think we have support for anything but standalone mode. So basically, it's hard to do. You can't do debugging of of failover scenarios and stuff like that yet. There are still some things that will come in there, but we will start to push it out now. We really want some early feedback, and we want to give the code some traction so we can get some some uses and see what's going on. So what is feedback. It wouldn't be more interesting to help us between the customer collection instead of using our code. Yeah, it's a good point. I actually don't know what we support in terms of, to be honest, I haven't dug right into that yet, but what we support to do in terms of, declaring the mode just outside of code, but through configuration somehow. But yeah.
Will it be possible to also control the serializers in that pipeline?
I actually don't know, Andre.
Damir is speaking here. I'm just coming back to the question. A few questions right now we asked. With this custom serialization, persistence, and so on, it's in fact all the same thing, which we never supported for real. And it was always asked, huge ask by customers. Just to make this a little bit, more understandable is, imagine when the team ships soon actors on mesh. Yeah, and these actors will use reliable collections. And the actors by default, they have no some kind of queryable language to query across millions of actors somewhere. It is almost impossible or very hard to implement. By giving us the chance to use any other kind of storage, like SQL or name it, we could use the query language provided by that kind of persistent store, which is a huge thing. Just want to make sure that the people in the team understand that how important this is. Because in all previous versions of Service Fabric, you always have been discussing about it, but never happened. And Orleans had something similar to that, or still has. Makes sense?
Yes, it does.
So just to clarify, Damir, so are you interested in being able to query the storage, even if it's the built-in storage, or you specifically want to replace the storage for other purposes and not just the querying?
Okay, you're right, but I just don't want you think now in some. This was just one example of a query. Yeah, this was example. What will be the next problem if you don't provide that model? Okay, which we already have for years right now, that problem. So what we want to have is ability on reliable connections to inject our persistence provider for that. If I say I want to persist everything what's happened, what the collection holds by using of my own service, which might be driven by your general or whatever service, yeah, in a cluster. So I can persist that on a disk, I can persist that on OneDrive if I like, don't care, yeah? I persist and I serialize that. So right now, as I saw in the code, you are just going in program.cs and say blah blah, don't use some provider which you already provide me. And this is huge limitation. I do not see even right now by design the possibility that anybody can inject anything else different than that what is specified in this list which you provide.
It
should be extended.
I think it's interesting because
Could you maybe share the screen with that line of code? It maybe could be more easy to understand. You know which I mean. In this voting service in program.cs where you say .use reliable collection service.
Sure. Do you see it?
Not yet, but it's loading. So exactly that line. So this is independent of Service Fabric, in my opinion, also big limitation by ASP.NET team. This is not injection, really. It is, I would expect you use reliable connection and I provide you some string like assembly qualified name.
Yeah.
Of some component which implements something you
yes
to do. That's it.
It's a provider, whatever you want, something like this, right?
These would be great, and there should be some interface, whatever that might be. We implement that few methods, and that's it.
Yeah.
And you give us a few of them, like cluster, like standalone, like volatile, or whatever you like. It's good.
Whether it has configuration or something, or whatever it needs,
Yes,
but
yes.
you basically want different kind of providers in the.
Exactly.
What's interesting about this comment is that I think I get your ask and I understand what it is, but it really, I think all the time what we did with reliable services and reliable access is that we not only did we give you, Service Fabric, the platform that sort of has the capabilities of, giving you state and replicated state, but we also gave you a programming model that sort of came with the platform. And what we're really trying to do is we're trying to
Decouple it.
trying to go a little bit in a different direction where we decouple these, and
That's good. That's great. Yeah.
that is good, yes, but what we have seen is we actually see customers often asking us, about this the other way around, where they want, the replication and the state awareness of Service Fabric to support their existing program model and APIs.
But I do not see any limitation in that if we continue with this new model now, which is decoupled from Service Fabric. There is no any limitation on that. You will give us.
No, there's just a lot of work to do.
Yeah,
Right?
I know, but
There's definitely a prioritization in this, and but yeah. But I get what you're asking for. Yes, I think this to some degree has to be a natural evolution of this, right? If
yes, definitely. Well, the people are right now excited. We can Docker now and so on. Cool. But the problem is all this Docker stuff it's infrastructure as a service. It doesn't really give us statefulness, which might be next big thing in the scale and so on. We all still think in stateless, and for that it's okay with. But this, what you have started now, it's a really great thing, definitely, yeah. But just don't build in hard-coded stuff here. Make it extensible.
Yeah, got it. Cool. Good feedback. Thanks.
Okay, looking to the chat, I see a question from Tino regarding the service remoting. So, Mikkel, can you comment on this one?
We still using one reason notice that while trying to update some stuff. I don't think we sunset. I need the details of what that specifically is, Tino. Oh, wait a second. So you're basically saying we don't have V1 in .NET Standard package, right? That's the thing. That V1 still relies on .NET Framework. That is probably right. I don't know if it will drop. No, it won't drop out of the normal packages anytime soon. We don't have any plan to discontinue it like that. I just don't think it's part of the. I think V2 is the only thing that's part of the .NET Standard, or the only thing we brought over to .NET Standard. Yeah. So Andre, yeah, well, you know what happened to ideas? They are ideas, and some of them. It's funny the comment that Dame brought along about we're all about stateless, and is it the programming model you come from? What is it? There's Yes, there was a time where stateless is not as difficult as stateful. HTTP is, polyglot. even gRPC might be polyglot, and then you get maybe you get like both an interface-based communication, but it's still HTTP-based in the end. So the problem with service remoting is that it ties you into, us providing it for .NET, and you're sort of tied into .NET. But there's nothing, we definitely see a lot of customers just like doing it that way. I think this is really trying to figure out where the general trend among developers is going, and if people would still use a thing like that, or if they wanted it to be HTTP-based communication only because they basically want that the possibility of having services with different programming languages easily communicate. I don't know if that was an answer, but I think those were some of the thoughts we've had around these things.
Mikhail, doesn't the Envoy stuff sort of cover that topic as well?
If the Envoy stuff will cover that topic as well.
Well, because that's going to take over the general communication topic, right? Service to service and even external. So it really it becomes up to the developer at that point to choose what they want to use.
Yeah, but I don't see why that will change based on today. I mean, service remoting was, a remoting interface, a remoting protocol that we gave users to, have that option.
Right, I'm just addressing at one time we talked about changing it to HTTP, but that conversation kind of been subsumed by the mesh conversation, the service mesh conversation, I would think.
Not necessarily. Just that I don't misunderstand. We're not talking about trying to do service remoting over HTTP, right? That seems to be just an implementation detail to me, to be honest.
Yeah, so I think this goes back almost 2 years or 1 year, I can't even remember, it's so far back. But Ben Adams was actually explaining how that's how they do all of their communication inside their Age of Descent game. And it's ultra high performance, and they're using Service Fabric. And the follow-on from that was some months later was the Service Fabric team was actually saying officially we're thinking of switching from remoting to actually that type of communication as the default. So from my understanding of it, it would be like Kestrel to Kestrel between microservices, transferring your objects over, if that makes sense.
Yes, but I don't. So I mean, we don't have. I don't think we have a default in terms of. Well, we don't, right? I mean, to do HTTP, you need a web server, right? So I mean, if you do, so there are some of the templates we provide that do, sort of align with one of the other communication models or technologies that you sort of choose. But as such, we don't have a default. I mean, with the reverse proxy and our naming service and all of that, we do provide, support for HTTP communication with inside the cluster, and we then have service remoting as, an interface-based remoting protocol that you can choose to use. It's basically up to you which one you want to use. So.
Like, I think where the question's coming from, like, I'm not really concerned about that bit so much, but it's more maybe along the lines of what Damir talked about. So back in the current landscape, the default serializer is the XML based serializer. And from having worked with it for a while, I think that's one of the bigger areas of overhead in the stack. So with all this work, is there any thinking or maybe things that will that be changed? Will a different potential serializer be supported out of the box, or is that still up to customers to implement just based on backwards compatibility? That I know that could be a problem, but I'm wondering if there's more areas of the stack like the serializer, like that layer, that can be more optimized for higher performance.
Yeah, I don't know of work that is in flight for that. So unless it's under someone's desk somewhere and being worked on, I don't know. But I don't know officially that is there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. Just a question.
Yeah, sure. So Slobomir is saying, with new applications, will the actual user service run on secondary replicas? Will it be possible to read from secondary, except the data might be stale? Yes, it will. We would have the replication stuff being in process in the user code to begin with, but we really want to move that out of the user process at one point. But it will be running, and read from secondaries will be possible as well.
Okay, thanks. And so billing-wise, you would be built in Mesh for all the replicas for all 3 or however many replicas you have for a stateful service.
Yes, I think it's actually already out on the billing side, which is quite funny. Let me just see. Doody. I did remove that again. It actually was there at one point in time. Let me get back to you with that. But yes, there is some cost. So if you just run stateless, there is an additional cost for doing replication of data. Whether it's just the amount of data or whether it ties into the number of replicas, I actually don't remember. But it was available at one point.
I've got a question related to that, and this may be controversial or not. I don't know. So if it is, please ignore my question.
We're still recording, aren't we? Yeah.
Are we? Oh, sorry. I thought it was just the 15 of us. So this is related to Mesh, and it's related to the cost model. I guess it's too early to know for sure, but some of the news that's coming out, do we have to have, what will customers be charged for if they are running stateless workloads? Is it just the CPU and the RAM, or is there more to it?
So I think I actually have it here now. I think I found the webpage. So I think we already did put these prices out. Well, we didn't, but anyways. But the pricing model is sort of described here from Mesh. So there is container compute. So basically, the container compute is the same price for for a service like ACI, because it's just a container we run. So there's the virtual CPU and gigabytes of memory allocated for each instance. That is on a 1 minute minimum charge, and then I think it's per second. And then there's additional charges if you run Windows containers. And there are volume disk pricing, and there is reliable collections as well.
Yeah, I think the question was specifically about the volume disks. If I'm running a stateless workload, will I still be charged for a volume disk? Sorry, it might be controversial. I don't know.
No, it's not controversial to ask that. I actually don't know.
So the current model is per usage of the disk, including the disk size and the IOPS, right? So it's on the page. So if you're not using the disk.
No, but I think so. Volume. There are two different volume disks, right? There's something you map from an Azure Files, and then there is the replicated volume disk. I think for Azure Files, you had to pay for the Azure Files storage, right? That's separate from the Mesh service.
Correct.
But I don't think that incur any cost onto the Mesh part of that setup.
So like if I'm running a stateless container where I don't care if my state is blown away or not, whatever I write locally in the container can be blown away, do I need a volume disk or I don't have to have a volume disk?
Okay, you don't have to have it. So there's two kinds of volume disk. One which is mapped to Azure Files, which is essentially an SAB volume somewhere in the cloud. The other is the reliable local high-performance replicated storage within the cluster. And you also have the scratch space, right, within your container, right? But you don't have to use any of the 2 volumes in your app, and then you're not charged for them, right? So for the Azure Files volume, my understanding is that you pay only for the Azure Files themselves, right? So you pay for your quota there for storage and for IOPS. And for the SF-based reliable collection replicated volume, you have the info on the pricing page. And it's also, again, it's per unit, per disk size, and per IOPS, right? The info is there. But you don't necessarily have to have either of the 2 volumes if you have a Mesh application.
I was going to say maybe this would be good to clarify, because I've seen in some of the, I don't know, forums and on different channels, I don't know what other customers have similar questions, and I think they were confused about maybe that. So I don't know if they've read the right documentation or if there's something else that can be published to clarify that. But
yeah.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yeah, thanks for the feedback. We'll bring that forward, Andre. Okay, I think we did run out of time, right? Didn't we?
No, we did not. We started 3 minutes later, so we're on time.
Oh, so now we ran out of time.
Okay.
Anyways, any more questions, guys? Anything before we sign off? And again, even if there's any feedback you want to give us on these community calls, I mean, we've always been having these community calls sort of a very informal place to just, have conversations, ask questions, and those sort of things. And now you can send an email to Vlad if you have any questions. It's nice of you, Vlad. But if you have any, ideas or wishes for how we should drive these community calls, if you find they're valuable and stuff like that, please let us know. And we'd love to get some feedback on that as well.
Yeah, we'd also love some feedback on the format of the community calls themselves. Is this useful? We tried to make it an impromptu chat, as Michael explained. But if you guys want to send us your questions ahead of time, or whatever suggestions you have, we're willing to listen. Just throw it out.
Yeah, and even if you have stuff you would like to bring forward and share with other people on the call, we have done that in the past as well. Reach out and let us know, and we'll find some time where you can share your ideas and thoughts. Just show up some, stuff you did around Service Fabric that you think will be valuable for the broader audience.
So, Mikkel, I have an idea. Whoever asked the most questions has to have a demo for the next community call.
Oh, there you go, Andre. That's one for you.
So I'm volunteering Andre for the next demo. Okay. All right.
Cool. Thanks everybody.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.